We don't have any indication up here as to whether or not they're on TV. Chad, are we on? Okay, very good. Okay, our monitors up here are not working, so that's why I ask. Thank you. Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of December 4th, 2023. In accordance with LB 898, please be advised that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber by the northwest door. Let us all rise now for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief period of silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The order of the business of the Lincoln City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda. Under a public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The council shall require any member of the public desiring to address the council to identify themselves, the name of an organization or group, including an address that you may be representing, unless the address requirement is waived to protect the security of the individual. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, organization or group, and whether you are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays of each month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date, nor planned for a future agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please call our first item of business?
Our first item of business today for Monday, December 4th, 2023 is our consent agenda, sections 1, 2, and 3.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak on items 1, 2, or 3? Director Elliott, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Liz Elliott, 555 South 10th Street, Director of Lincoln Transportation Utilities. We have an item 1E on consent. This is approving the certification of the street superintendent for the calendar year of 2023. This is an annual certification that we do with the State Department of Transportation. It certifies that Tim Byrne, our street maintenance service manager, is our street superintendent. It does allow us to get a little bit of additional funding, and by a little bit, I mean like a couple $1,000s. But we do this every year. There's different classes, A and B. Tim is the highest class eligible for the state. So just an annual certification that you'll see from us each year.
Very good. Questions for Director Elliott? Yes, Councilman Duden.
Dates on this?
This is, he served January 1st through December 31st of 23, and then he's being reappointed to serve in 2024. And I apologize, I don't have the actual document up. Resolution.
Expires this month.
His current one should expire this year, and then he should be reappointed for next year.
Looks like it's right in the...
Yes, so it shows that his current one is expiring, but we're reappointing him for next year.
Yep.
Yes, thank you
Like
for
the
making sure that's
resolution.
correct, because
Yep,
we
the
have had that wrong in the past.
The resolution is correct. Any other questions for Director Elliott? Okay, very good.
Thank
you
you
so much. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on items 1, 2, or 3 on the consent agenda? Hello, welcome.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all. I think we're here to talk about the Commission on Human Rights.
Yes, we are. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Reyes, 555 South 10th Street. I'm the Director of the Human Rights Commission, and I am here to discuss, looks like 4 individuals that we have up on our agenda today. Starting first with appointments to the Human Rights Commission. First, we have Dr. Rob McIntarfer. I told him I would really try hard for that.
He is here today.
He is here today, and we are very excited about his application to join us on the Human Rights Commission. He currently serves as an assessment evaluation supervisor with Lincoln Public Schools and has been with Lincoln Public Schools for some time. He's prepared a short statement, and so I will let him take the microphone.
Oh, very good. Welcome. Some of us think of you as Mr. Mack, but I guess now it's Doctor. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for the honor. Rob McIntyre, 4315 Washington Street, Lincoln Public Schools, but here as a private citizen. And I'm interested in helping serve the commission prevent human rights abuses in any way that I can. I've lived in Lincoln my entire life, and I'm glad to give back if I can.
Very good. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Any questions for our applicant before we let him go? All right, very good. Thank you so much.
Our second appointment is Professor Catherine Wilson. Professor Wilson is an associate professor at the University of Nebraska College of Law. I had the privilege of being one of her students, but also just tagging along with her throughout law school. And I really appreciate that she's put her name in for consideration here. Professor Wilson has also provided a short statement, and I will let her come to the microphone.
Very good. Thank you. Professor Wilson, welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Name's Catherine Wilson. I live at 8240 South Street. I'm a native Nebraskan, been in Lincoln about 30 years, and I'm honored to be asked to put my name in the hat and to do so. This is a commission that I got to know through the programming that they offer. And also a couple years ago, in my role with the NAACP, I had the opportunity to sit with Mindy and learn about the work of the commission and how they refer individuals to different resources and all the resources available in the office. They asked me to tell why. As public service, I serve in a number of different capacities in the city and at the university where I'm employed. But this will be a little bit different, working with the city, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to give back, as Rob said, in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Wilson. Any questions for Professor before we let her go? No. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
And council members, both Dr. McIntyre and Professor Wilson are on the agenda for serving partial terms to expire December 31st of 2024. Our next person, Ms. Kiwan Assad, is on the agenda for a term that would expire December 31st of 2026. Ms. Assad serves as a DOJ accredited representative with the Center for Legal Immigration Assistance, and we are very excited to see her application and her willingness to serve on the Human Rights Commission. And she has prepared a short statement, and I will let her come to the microphone.
Ms. Assad, welcome.
Hi, sorry, I have a little bit longer statement, if that's okay.
Please.
So my name is Kiwan Assad. I work at CALIA, Center for Legal Immigration Assistance, 3047 North 70th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68507. I was born in North Iraq, Kurdistan region. My native language is Kurdish, and I do speak Arabic and English. I have a bachelor's degree in law from Iraq. I was able to get my attorney ID at the same time we got approved for a refugee program because of my father. He used to work with U.S. organizations in North Iraq, so I was able to come here through that. Right now, I am a U.S. citizen, and I have been in the U.S. for about 10 years. I came to the United States with my parents and my siblings, and we first arrived in Dallas, Texas, and we were there for about a year, and then we moved here to Lincoln, Nebraska. Right now, I'm a Department of Justice accredited representative at CALIA. So CALIA is a nonprofit organization. We help immigrants to apply for their status. I'm really grateful to be appointed by the mayor for me to be on the board member of the Human Rights Commission, and I'm really grateful that I stand here before you. When we arrived here, I was very excited to go back to school and so I could work around my career field, but there wasn't enough support or someone to show me the path. After many consultations with SCC, UNL College of Law, decided to take some classes in SCC College of, and took Political Science, American Government. After that, I realized that I need to work on my English language, and then I decided to work. So I worked retail store for like 7 years and stuck there. After volunteering with Kalia for about a year, and then they hired me. I was very, very excited because finally I would work somewhere that I like and also around my career field. There are a lot of people like me out there, and they don't have enough information about the rules of continuing education here in the United States. And I understand their struggle because we worked really hard to finish our school in Iraq during the war with no electricity in the summertime. During the exam, we had to walk to school in the cold winter. I want to help and serve the city of Lincoln and learn more about that. I want to be able to prevent employment discrimination and make a good decision about that and prevent any discrimination that happens because of race, religion, nationality, and other. I bring a unique perspective that I hope is helpful to the commission.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions for our applicant? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
We
so much
appreciate
for your
it.
time. Thanks.
And finally, I have the pleasure of briefly discussing our reappointment of Amira Ibrahim Pasish. Dr. Ibrahim Pasish has been with the commission for 4 years, currently serves as our chair, and is on the agenda for reappointment for a term that would expire December 31st of 2025.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions on that application? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on any of our agenda items, our consent agenda items, those being listed under sections 1, 2, or 3? Anyone else here to speak on consent agenda items 1, 2, or 3? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, let's call the roll on those items.
Item 1A is appointing Rob McIntarfer and Catherine Wilson to the Commission on Human Rights for partial terms to expire December 31st, 2024, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Weber, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1B is appointing Kawan Assad to the Commission on Human Rights for a term to expire December 31st, 2026, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Weber,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1C is reappointing Amira Ibrahim Pashish to the Commission on Human Rights for a term to expire December 31st, 2025, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Weber, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1D is approving Tanks Enterprises LLC doing business as Tanks located at 2755 Jamie Lane Suite 14 through 16, Lincoln, Nebraska 68516 as a Keno satellite, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1E is approving the certification of the street superintendent for a term from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st of 2023, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, call the roll.
Shob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1F is approving appropriations in the amount of $311,500 from the operation of Keno Lottery funds for various human services, introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Washington, discussion.
I just wanted to note, both Councilman Bowers and I sit on the Joint Budget Committee, which has a responsibility for Keno funds and the next item as well. And if folks ever wondered whether or not, when you sit down to play a small game of Keno, if there's any benefit, I just wanted to let you know that, those monies go to Human Services, Parks and Trails, and they go also to streets in an unusual way. But that said, I'm going to talk about Human Services because I think that these folks need to understand the Keno funds really help to make our community better. It helps to lift up the organizations in and around Lincoln who are striving to make certain that everyone has a chance to thrive in Lincoln. And so thank you for playing Keno.
All right, please call the roll.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1G is approving the 2023-24 Joint Budget Committee Nonprofit Child Care Assistance Funding Recommendations, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Carlson, discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1H is resolution levying the assessments approved by the City Council sitting as the Board of Equalization on November 20th, 2023, and setting the interest rate on those assessments for the cost of the improvements in the Downtown Management Business Improvement District, Downtown Core Management Business Improvement District, Downtown Maintenance District, and the West Haymarket Downtown Maintenance District, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Carlson, discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Items 2A through 2D were introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Weber, discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Okay. That concludes our consent agenda. We shall move on to section 4, which is our public hearing liquor resolutions. I'll be calling item 4A, manager application of Mary E. Verlick for the Hillcrest Country Club, doing business as Hillcrest Country Club, located at 9401 O Street.
Before we move on to that, I just wanted to thank Professor Wilson and Ms. Assad. Thank you so much for coming down. Your nominations have been approved, so you're good to go. I don't want you to have to stay here any longer than you have to. We have a long agenda today. So thank you both. We appreciate it. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Please.
Mary Varlick, address is 9559 Mortson Court, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68526. And I'm here on behalf of Hillcrest Country Club.
Very good. Thank you for coming down. Will you tell us a little bit about the application before us?
It is the application for a liquor license.
Have you worked at Hillcrest long, or are you a
Since
new-
January, so about coming up on a year.
Okay, okay, very good. Questions for our applicant from council? No, seeing none? Okay, very good. Well, thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 4A? All right, let's move on to 4B.
Item 4B is manager application of Mary Kay Finnell for Warhorse Gaming Lincoln LLC, doing business as Warhorse Casino Lincoln, located at 7055 South First Street.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, I am Mary Fennell, lives at 9104 Baybrook Circle in Lincoln, Nebraska, and representing Warhorse Casino at 7055 South First Street, otherwise known as First and Denton Road.
Very good. You're a new manager of the facility?
Food and beverage manager, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. Do we have questions for our applicant today? We've reviewed your application, so I think if we don't have any questions, all looks
right.
good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
very much. We appreciate you coming down. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 4B? All right, moving forward, let's move on to 4C, please.
Item 4C is application of ACR Corporation doing business as Jake's Cigars and Spirits for an addition of an indoor area measuring approximately 26 feet by 54 feet at 101 North 14th Street, Suite 1.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Sean Dunbar. I'm the general manager of Jake's Cigars and Spirits and Beer K Jr. at 101 North 14th Street.
Sean, thanks for coming down. It looks like we have an expansion to talk about.
Yes, again.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So we're just expanding our Beer K Junior side next door. It's just pretty much to put more games in, a little bit more seating. Not building another bar since we already have one of those. Should be pretty simple. So.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for coming down. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do we have questions for our applicant today?
I just have one comment.
Councilwoman.
I do make a point of reading each of the liquor applications, and I noted that since you've been in operation since 2007, you've had no violations.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you again. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 4C? Anyone else here for 4C? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote on those liquor resolutions.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one else coming forward, I'd like to move approval of items 4A, B, and C.
Second.
Second, Washington, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Weber,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Okay, that concludes our section 4 of our agenda. We shall move on to section 5, our public hearing resolutions. I'll call item 5A, accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city for November 1st through November 15th of 2023.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak on item 5A, new and pending claims report against the city of Lincoln? Is there anyone here to speak on item 5A, new and pending claims against the city of Lincoln? If you'd like to dispute a claim, now's the time to do so. Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to 5B.
Okay. Item 5B is assessing the fees and penalties for neglected buildings on property located at 1723 South 20th Street, 543 Lamont Ave, 2641 South 9th Street, and assessment of the fees and penalties for neglected buildings on property located at 3801 South 37th Street, 824 B Street, 826 H Street, 520 South 27th Street, 2809 F Street, 1934 F Street, 922 South 20th Street, 835 North 30th Street, 3535 Somerset Ave, and 5320 Bristolwood.
Sean, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Sean Stewart. I'm Chief Housing Inspector with Building and Safety, 555 South 10th Street.
Sean, do you want to walk us through a little bit about what we have in front of us here today?
Yeah, the tables on the are assessments for demolitions of properties that the city has had to move forward with as far as resulting some dilapidated properties, and then the neglected building registrations are for properties that have are vacant, have fallen into disrepair. The owners aren't taking the action moving forward to get them into a reasonable state of repair.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for that overview. We appreciate it. Do we have specific questions for Sean while we have him here? Yes, Councilwoman, please.
Mr. Stewart, would you mind explaining the difference in fees and penalties? Is it the number of inspections you've done on a property?
It's the number of registrations. So each property is required to be registered every 90 days.
Okay.
So some of these properties haven't had liens placed on them for probably a year, a little bit over a year. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Other questions for Sean? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 5B, assessing the fees and penalties for neglected buildings? Anyone else here to speak on item 5B? Okay, seeing none. Let's go ahead and vote on those resolutions.
Item 5A is accepting and approving the report of new and pending claims against the city for November 1st through November 15th of 2023, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 5B is assessing the fees and penalties for neglected buildings on property located at 1723 South 20th Street, 543 Lamont Ave, 2641 South 9th Street, and assessment of fees and penalties for neglected buildings on property located at 3801 South 37th Street, 824 B Street, 826 H Street, 520 South 27th Street, 2809 F Street, 1934 F Street, 922 South 20th Street, 835 North 30th Street, 3535 Somerset Ave, and 5320 Bristolwood. Introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Weber. Discussion?
I would like to
Please.
offer a motion to amend number 1, changing the list of buildings. I'd like to remove one building from the list of neglected buildings. They have paid their fees.
Okay, very good. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second, Carlson. Let's go ahead and call a roll on that.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Back to the main motion. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the roll on that.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Shob,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. That concludes our section 5 of our agenda. We shall move on to section 6, public hearing ordinances, second reading and related resolutions. Item 6A is an ordinance authorizing the execution of the delivery of a loan agreement between the city and the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy to fund certain improvements to the city's water system and a related promissory note in a principal amount not to exceed $32,600,000.
Director Elliott, welcome.
Thank you, and I forgot to get this set up before, so I apologize for the beeping just a little bit ago. Here to talk about an exciting topic. I have just a very short PowerPoint to kind of walk us all through on lead lines. And so our water here in Lincoln is extremely safe. It meets or exceeds all of the federal regulations, and the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, is the federal agency that implements water quality regulations, including lead. It's to be expected that there's a certain small amount of contaminants in every water that we drink in the nation, in the world. But the idea is to keep them at a safe level. And those are the regulations that Lincoln Water meet or exceed in many cases. And in this case, lead, there's some new rules coming out from the EPA that are requiring water systems across the nation to address private service lines that may contain lead. So where is lead found? These are privately owned service lines. There's no lead in the city's water system. These are entirely private owned lines that connect to a house, to a business, any kind of property that has water line. But lead can also be found in plumbing fixtures inside the house, faucets, those types of things, and those could be in owned or rental properties. Typically, we're seeing them in plumbing before 1950s, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But just kind of a graphic explaining that. So we've got the water line here on the left, the red service line that goes into the house. That's the private line that we're focused on here with this initiative that we're working on. But you could also get that contamination within the plumbing fixtures inside the home. But we're focused here on the private service line that runs from the city's water main into the house. And we all know with lead, it's something that we've been talking about for decades now, that it can pose certain health risks. Children, pregnant women, older adults are the most vulnerable, but all of us, lead does pose some health risks to us. And this is something that throughout the city, we really have been taken seriously for years. Our current practice when we come into known contact with this is that those do have to be replaced under the building and safety guidelines. So we replace lead service lines when we're encountered during main replacement. That's on us. We pay for that but for us not being there, that lead line would not be disturbed. However, if a private homeowner has a leak on their private service line, that is up to them right now to replace that service line, and they must follow the current building codes on that. our efforts towards removing all lead service lines is an additional component to Lead Safe Lincoln, which is an initiative led by the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department and the Urban Development. So if you do have any questions, I believe we do have Brock and maybe Pat Lopez in the back that can answer questions on the Lead Safe Lincoln initiative, but this is another component of that program. We have new federal regulations through the EPA that is requiring that we, water service providers, remove all lead service lines in our communities, even though these are private service lines. And the new rules are actually saying this now has to be completed in the next 10 years. This is cities across the nation. It's not just Lincoln. There's been in the news over the last year or so of other cities starting to embark on this journey. Right now, what we know on the left side, we know we have right around 2,000 lead service lines. We do have a little under 4,000 galvanized. Those are galvanized parts that currently are or were at some point downstream from lead service lines. So it is required under the new EPA rules that that also has to be removed because that can have the same health risks as the actual lead line. We have just under 5,000 service lines here in town that we don't know what they are. So we have to do inventory under this new regulation that requires us to go out and find out what those are. So if we look at everything, our lead and galvanized that we know about is right about 6,000. And then if you add the unknown, we're almost at 11,000 service lines here in town. Now, what the funding that we're going to talk about here in a minute does have reimbursement higher if you are in a disadvantaged census tract in the community. So about the 2,000 lead lines that we know about, 34% of those are in a disadvantaged community here in Lincoln. 22% of the galvanized are also in a disadvantage. But if we look clear to the end, the total of all of those, the known and the unknown, it's about 28% that are in disadvantaged census tracts. Earlier I mentioned they stopped using lead service lines in about 1950, so you can see we're really looking at those homes that were built. There's some in the 30s to 50s, but primarily it's early the 1920s, 1910s. Those are the homes that are more likely, if they have not been replaced, to have those lead service lines or the galvanized parts to that. As part of the program, we are developing and creating a web page that will allow the public to go to, have more information about the program that we are currently setting up, but it will also have information on, is my property one that it has a known or unknown line? We're working on that, but here's the map that we have, the blue and purple. The light purple is lead, the darker purple is the galvanized components that we require replacement. And then this map shows where all of the unknowns are at. So this is everywhere that we're gonna have to inventory and figure out what it is. Not all of these are gonna be lead or galvanized, but there's definitely going to be some that are. And it's not as if we can just take a peek in their basement to see. It actually is gonna require some potholing or even bigger evaluation, because over the years we might have piecemealed fixes, or the private homeowners may have. And so they might have only fixed this and it looks like it's copper, but a foot down it's lead. So we're working with a consultant to help us go through and inventory all of that. But what we really want to do is to advance our efforts in this. If you recall from the current budget that you approved, we have been programming $2 million a year in our CIP to be starting to get through and get these replaced. But there has now become a new funding opportunity through the new Federal Infrastructure Investment Act that is allowing us to get a loan from the Nebraska Department of Environmental and
Energy.
Thank you. Wow, NDEE. And so that's what we're looking on. That's going to allow us to expedite the work that we are doing here. So the objectives of the loan that we are seeking approval for is to create a full, robust replacement program to get all of these lines removed, replaced within the next 10 years. It will also, part of this, go out and identify those that we don't know what those service lines are, and develop public education and engagement efforts as we go through this. The loan terms for this, the loan amount is $32.6 million. It is a 30-year loan. Best part about, I shouldn't say the best part, the second best part about this is it is 0% interest, but we can get up to 62% forgiveness on this. And that all depends on that disadvantaged neighborhood and how many of those ultimately fall within that census tract. We believe, based on our research, based on age of homes and stuff, we're probably looking at 50% loan forgiveness, but that is still a tremendous return on investment for us. This loan includes an inventory grant of up to $3.2 million. It's about 10% of the loan. That part of the loan is 100% forgiveness. This will assist us with identifying and doing that inventory of those unknowns. Assuming a 50% forgiveness, that would be a $480,000 debt repayment annually. That would come from that $2 million that we already have in our CIP allocation. The additional $1.5 million, give or take, would be additional money that we could put in above and beyond this loan to continue trying to move this program through as fast as possible. So this is already built in, that $2 million that's already built into our current rate revenue structure. It's in our modeling. This is something that we've already accounted for, so it's not increasing rates for anyone. It's going through what we already have and have had budgeted. So the timeline is in 2024, this is really when we would start that initial kind of the pilot project. Get everything going. This is going to require a lot of private plumber contractors to help us. We don't have the staff on hand to do hundreds of these replacements. So we will be working with the private plumbers through contracts and doing that reimbursement there. We'll have some public engagement, and our goal is 200 lead service line replacements next year. That's just because we know as you get something started, it moves a little slower. Going into 2025, that's really when the program will become more robust. We'll have our legs under us, and the goal is a minimum of 500 lead service lines a year. You might ask me, why can't we go faster? We would love to go faster, but we have capacity issues. We don't know how much the plumbers will be able to take on. This is also because this is private service lines. We have to get permission to go to the property owners and do that. So that adds an extra level. There just may be some that say no. So that's part of why we aren't just saying let's do 10,000 in a year type of thing. But this is something that we can always expand as we learn and get through it, and hopefully get through it faster. But right now we're planning on averaging about 500 each year over 10 years. So we do expect this to be done by 2035 and have all of the lead service lines removed, replaced, and out of homes here in the community. And that will be a huge success as part of our Lead Safe Lincoln component. So I do have Colleen Duncan, if you have questions about the loan from Bond Counsel. I also have the Health Department and Donna here if we have specifics on the nitty-gritty. But ultimately, it is that 30-year loan, $32.6 million, anticipating 50% forgiveness, and we hope to have this all done in at least no more than 10 years. Hopefully sooner, but 10 years.
Very good. Thank you, Director Elliott. Questions for Director Elliott?
I think I have one.
Councilwoman, please.
I think I have just the one question. I might have two. So let me, all right. So first, when you talk about lead replacement in private lines, and you're talking about the lead line as well as any line upstream of lead or downstream of lead, that,
so we would
tell me again about the galvanized and the lead.
Right, so we would be replacing everything from the city's water main to the water meter.
Okay.
And that would be anything galvanized, lead, or otherwise. So inside the home, plumbing fixtures and all of that, that would be on the homeowners. But anything from the main to the meter, we will replace.
Okay, and so if a homeowner still had lead in the house, that's still their responsibility?
It is, yes.
Okay, second question, if someone says no, what do we do? Do we keep track of the no's?
We will. With the new, there are new amendments coming to the rule from the EPA, and it appears that it is going to be mandatory. Right now, it hasn't been final. It's not a final rule. We expect it to be. If and when it does become final, at some point, we are going to have to mandate the homeowners allow us to do it. I don't know what that looks like right now. My hope is that we can work, we can be able to show them the benefits to them and their families, and hopefully not get any resistance, or at least help minimize any concerns that they may have. But we'll just, we're not here, we don't want to pressure anyone and force them, so we'll put them on a list, and we'll just say, hey, we'll keep talking, we'll share some information, and hopefully get to them eventually. A lot of it's just going to be education. It's kind of scary when we say, hey, we want to change your water line, and I get that, so we'll work with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Elliott? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much, Director. We appreciate you coming down. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 5A, or excuse me, 6A? Anyone else here to speak on item 6A? All right, very good. Let's go ahead and move on to our next set of agenda items.
I'll be calling items 6B, C, D, and E together. Item 6B is annexation 21010, application of Bade Properties LLC to annex approximately 41.99 acres, more or less, on property generally located northeast of South 70th Street and Yankee Hill Road. And the related change of zone 21053, application of Bade Properties LLC to change from AG Agricultural District to R3 Residential Planned Unit for up to 120,000 square feet of commercial floor and up to 464 multiple family dwelling units on the property generally located northeast of South 70th Street and Yankee Hill Road, and approving the annexation agreement between the city and Bade Properties LLC for the property generally located at South 70th and Yankee Hill Road, and the related comprehensive plan amendment 22002, application of Bade Properties LLC to amend the Lincoln-Lancaster County 2050 comprehensive plan to revise the future land use map on approximately 42.15 acres by changing portions of the western and northern sections from urban residential and green space to commercial for the property generally located at 7230 Yankee Hill Road.
Mr. Houston, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Tom Houston. My address is 233 South 13th Street, Suite 1900, here in Lincoln. Appearing before you today on behalf of Beatty Properties. With me today is my client, Alan Beatty of Beatty Properties, Brad Marshall, the project engineer from Olson Associates, and Todd Lorenz, the broker from Prism. What we have in front of you is the Market Point development, the 42 acres located on the northeast corner of 70th and Yankee Hill Road. We had probably had 10 to 12 issues that we had to get resolved over the last year and a half with staff. We've probably resolved all but one of those issues, and that's primarily what I want to talk to you about today. The items on your agenda are comprised of, first of all, the annexation 21010, to bring the 42 acres. I think this 42 acres is currently an island that is not yet annexed. It's annexed on all four sides of it, so it should be annexed. It would have been part of the package that annexed between Yankee Hill and Pine Lake, but for our action bringing this separately. So it should be annexed within the city limits since it is an island. Second item on your agenda is the comp plan amendment. It really changes the comprehensive plan from residential and open space to commercial. In my mind, it's a little simpler than that. The commercial was oriented to Yankee Hill Road. We're really trying to orient it to 70th Street, but the comp plan amendment is really being changed to recognize the commercial development that will exist on this property. And the property it's a gorgeous piece of land. It's a nice flat piece of ground, but it does have a couple challenges to it. There's a railroad track on the north side of it that I'm certain you are all aware of. There's also a pipeline planning area because there's a high-pressure gas line on the south side of Yankee Hill Road, which extends, that pipeline planning area extends north onto this property, which presents a challenge for residential development, obviously. And it does have some floodplain and floodway in it, comprised of the Beal Slough. So we think we have arrived at a site plan through our change of zone that accommodates and pays attention to all of those challenges and still makes a very productive use of the ground. The third item on your agenda is the change of zone to really change it from an agricultural use to a commercial use, an R3 with a planned unit development designation on it. The PUD would permit 91,000 square feet of commercial, really located on the south west corner. 95,000 square feet of mini warehouses really on the north side, abutting and adjacent to the railroad track to help buffer the effects of the railroad track. And then 250 dwelling units of multifamily apartment development that would be on the southeast corner of this property. So the only really remaining issue that we have in front of you deals with the annexation agreement, which is the fourth item on your agenda. The annexation agreement, there are two versions in your packet, one of which was really prepared by the city, and the other one was obviously my preparation. And there's one principal distinction between those two versions of the annexation agreement. First of all, it deals primarily with the intersection improvements that are required to provide access to this site from the adjacent arterial streets. There is an intersection improvement on the south side onto the property from Yankee Hill Road that really consists of a right-in, right-out turn lane. And then the other issue deals with the intersection between 70th and Bridle Lane and what improvements are really required to provide access to this site. What we ultimately arrived at was a roundabout. I think it was our fifth attempt at a design of the improvements that would be required. There were some challenges, as I mentioned. The proximity to the railroad track was an issue. The proximity and what I guess plans had been made for the Harvest Hills development on the west side of the street was an issue. So we ultimately worked with the city over a number of months and came up with what I think was the fifth design that really provides for this roundabout at the existing grade. And obviously the annexation agreement is dealing with not only what the improvements are going to be required, but how to pay for those improvements. And the annexation agreement is, both versions are fairly clear that the roundabout itself is an impact fee facility for which the developer is able to be reimbursed through the impact fees generated by the development. And we both agree on that issue. The second issue that has arisen really deals with some of the additional facilities that are required to support the roundabout. In particular, because the proximity of Beal Slough, we're required to build a box culvert. The box culvert is a very expensive proposition. Our cost estimate's $860,000 for that box culvert. Now, one of the things I did want to talk about briefly is citation really from the Lincoln Municipal Code on what constitutes an impact fee facility. And the definition as found in the impact fee ordinance really defines an impact fee facility, and it requires two components. The first component, that it must expand the existing capacity of the public facility. And here it's South 70th Street, and obviously the roundabout will be expanding the capacity of South 70th Street. The second component is that the impact fee facility must also have an average useful life in excess of 15 years. And obviously, these box culverts last 100 years, I would imagine. And so we think that the box culvert in and of itself would satisfy the requirements for an impact fee facility for which the developer should be reimbursed as a part of the annexation process. Now, on this issue, the city and my client, we do not agree. The city does, the staff in our negotiation did not agree that the box culvert should be part of the equation and should be included in the reimbursement. But I have had conversations with members of the city council, including Councilmember Washington, and she proposed a compromise, which I think makes some sense. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention briefly, is that if my client, originally our design contemplated we would be building turn lanes at this site rather than a roundabout. And my client would have been required to make some type of facility improvement, public infrastructure, a shorter box culvert, if you would. And what we have come up with is a compromise that I think it makes a lot of sense, that would require reimbursement to Beatty Properties for the differential between the cost of the box culvert that is required to support the roundabout versus a box culvert that is required to support the turn lanes. What you have on the overhead, let me scan back a little bit so we can see this. On the left side, you can see here's a roundabout that would require the box culvert at a cost of $865,000. And if you compare that to the cost for a roundabout that would be required for turn lanes, that amount is $564,000. It's the length of the box culvert's the only issue. The differential there is $319,000 is the delta that we're talking about, and I would propose that the $319,000 should be reimbursable to my client as a part of the annexation process. The other thing I wanted to just briefly mention was our calculations for the impact fee generated by both Market Point on the east side and then Harvest Hills on the west side. There's going to be approximately $1,550,000 of impact fees. It's probably not going to pay for everything. And so you'll see language in the annexation agreement that contemplates that the city council would, in its discretion, have the ability to find additional financing to provide reimbursement to my client for that delta. And that's what I would request. So the items in front of you, the annexation, the comprehensive plan amendment, the change of zone, and then the resolution approving the annexation agreement. I would ask for your support on those and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Houston? We can certainly ask questions of him later as well.
Yes.
Councilwoman, please.
Yeah. So in our conversation last week, I did ask what the delta would be between the two because I was curious what that was. Thank you for providing the information on that. Could you talk a little bit about access onto the site for your development? So like how else will you be able to get onto your site? When we were speaking, I know we talked mostly about 70th, but I'd like to know, are there other ways for you to access the site?
Let's see if I can blow this up just a little bit. You'll see on the southern edge, there's a right in, right out turn from Yankee Hill Road. I think that's 72nd Street. This site plan's a little bit old because this road does now connect up to Bridle. This is going to be a through street, is one of the requirements of the CUP amendment. But this is 72nd Street, so there will be a right in, right out access here at 72nd Street off Yankee Hill Road. So between that access and that access, that's the access for the total development.
Okay. Are the lines going east along the property line? Is that another access road?
There's another access to the property to the east, which is not yet developed.
Okay.
And if and when it develops, we will be required to connect to that neighborhood, whatever that development may be, but we don't know what their schedule is. They had a plan that was brought forward that I don't think they pushed to completion, and we don't know what their schedule may be.
Okay. All right. So there are two access points. Right now, the way you've drawn it, there are two access points. And then some future ones should the area to the east.
Correct. It's a comprehensive plan shows it as residential also.
Oh, and the phasing, what part of your property are you thinking of building first?
Well, we have a lot of interest in the commercial. If you've been down there, there's a lot of new rooftops south of Yankee Hill Road between 70th and 84th and also west of there. And we have a lot of interest in this commercial area, including a grocery store for the neighborhood. And you may have seen the Planning Commission packet, but we had support from the neighborhood for additional services in the area because it's a long way to drive to a grocery store from that location. So we think the commercial development is going to be the immediate development. The other thing I would say is that in today's environment with the interest rates, the actions of the Federal Reserve and increasing interest rates have slowed the development process. It's the fact of the life. And my clients are not in a bigger hurry as they used to be. That's what I have found. So if interest rates moderate, I think we'll see a lot more activity, but people are kind of waiting for perhaps some reduction in the interest rate environments.
Fair enough.
Done? Okay, very good. Mr. Houston, since I have you here and you mentioned it, Can we go back in terms of, is there any sort of impact? You'd mentioned that the comp plan had shown this area as residential. Obviously, we're now showing commercial uses as well. Are we anticipating, or did your study suggest that turn lanes, roundabouts were needed on 70th because of the increased use, because of the commercial designation that you're now proposing?
You know, we did achieve a deviation request for that right in, right out, and we did support it with a traffic study. I don't remember the specifics of the traffic study, but what you mentioned makes sense to me, that the commercial activity would generate more trips, more traffic than the residential development would be.
And I don't know if Mr. Marshall would be more.
I'll jump up here.
Yeah.
Brad Marshall, 601 P Street, Suite 200, with Olson. So Olson did the traffic study on the development, and Shane King was the engineer. What he found was that the Harvest Hills development, which is commercial under the corner, actually will trigger it in its duration upon build out. The comp plan does change the Beatty property to commercial, which will then expedite it. It will speed up the process of warranting signalization at that intersection at Bridle, but ultimately it doesn't change any warrants or recommendations. Ultimately, that wouldn't be there. And I do believe that through the process of Harvest Hill and Village Meadows, which is on the west side, that ultimately the city kind of said, well, someday we're going to want a roundabout at this intersection, and it makes sense. And so Village Gardens and Garden View started showing roundabout with our PUD plans.
Sure.
So,
right, and those directed impact fees are combined to create to pay for that roundabout.
Both sides of the street, east and west. Yeah.
Because Harvest Hills did not have any directive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Nope. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
The other thing I would mention, if there's support for the concept of incorporating the Delta into the annexation agreement, I think it's a simple change to the annexation agreement version that I presented to you as a part of the motion to amend. Because the version that I presented included an $860,000 amount that the city would be asked to be reimbursed. I think we can modify that to change that to the Delta of the $319,000 with pretty easily, I should say. It should be an easy change to make, and we could have that on back to council for your action. Since today's public hearing, second reading, this will be on your agenda for third reading and action, administrative action next week.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Houston? Okay, very good. Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on the items 6B, C, D, and E? Director Elliott, welcome.
Good afternoon. I almost said evening. It's so dark in here.
Good afternoon.
It only feels like evening.
Yeah, right?
David Carey with the planning department as well.
Perfect, thank you. And Mr. Houston is correct. There were a number of, about 18 months ago, there were a number of kind of challenges that we all worked through, and I think it's been a very collaborative process. It's one that we've been able to resolve, all but one. And even this one, we went through about 5 different iterations trying to find something that would work. There's just a couple different things that I want to highlight, and I do have Thomas Schaefer, Assistant Director of Transportation, here with me to get into the engineering nitty and gritty, but to kind of just do the high level, kind of where we're at and why we got to where we are. This is not an access point that we had in our plans to do. This is something that's farther out. It's not something that we are requiring to do for this. As Mr. Houston said, I believe they're trying to orient the development to the 70th Street side and wanting that access point there. The current Harvest Hills, that's all on the opposite side, the west side of this, they built out theirs with their own funding. It was something they did not ask for reimbursement from. And so this is why this issue is coming up now, not with Harvest Hills, was because they didn't ask for anything that was reimbursable. But essentially, but for this development, this access point, this roundabout would not be built. This box culvert would not be built. It is not something that we had in our plans with any other development or project that we have going on. Mr. Houston is correct that the roundabout is reimbursable. There are impact fees from the Beatty project. There are also impact fees from the Harvest Hills project. The issue with that, though, is that does not cover all of the costs for this, whether it is a turn lane or a roundabout, and we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the fact is there is still a funding gap regardless of what option we use with this access point. And so when we look at this, we looked at what have we done in other locations. There is a property directly south of this property. And that one, there is a box culvert, and in fact have a photo of that here. If we kind of zoom in, let's see where we're at. So we have Harvest Hills would be on this side. We have the current proposed one here. But if you go directly south, you'll actually see there is a culvert box sitting here waiting for this area to be developed here. That was one that was paid by that developer as well. This was not one where we shared in costs for that. So looking just for what have we done, consistent practice, how have we answered this request to other developers, this is a good example in this immediate location. But looking at, to make this work, we really have to look at what would we be saying no to. There are a number of other developers in town that have come to us, you know, just in the last weeks, but we could look at 56th Rokeby, 56th Arbor, Falcon Corner, those types of projects that have all come to us saying, hey, we've got this gap in funding. City of Lincoln, LTU, can you fill that gap? And unfortunately, we have had to tell developers, we would love to fund all of it. We simply don't have the funds to fund all of that. So then we would have to be looking at not only for those developers who have come ahead of this project asking money, we would be jumping over them, but then we would also have to be looking into what in our next CIP is already planned, is already in our short-term planning goals that we would actually have to remove from our plans and say, sorry, we're not funding your project, we've changed our mind and we're going a different direction. So really, although I know Mr. Houston said that this really is an easy change, it's not. Because this change requires us to change something already in the plans, changes what we've already told developers, and it's a big no that we're telling someone, more than someone, just more than one person. So that's the challenge that we have when we're looking at this, is yes, on paper, in theory, it's only $300,000, it's an easy change in an annexation agreement. But the ripple effects and the number of people we have to say no to make a yes for this doesn't make sense on this project. Not because I don't like this project, not because it's not a good project. There's just so many other projects out there, and we just don't have the funding, unfortunately. So that's kind of where we're at. It's we can get into all of the engineering. Happy to turn that over to Thomas, but I'll turn it over to David.
I got a question for Liz.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, please.
When you say other projects why are they on hold?
Because we have no funding.
Okay.
So when we had Lincoln on the Move, we kind of run in these cycles. So we had a number of projects that waited 10, 15 years to be done. West A, some of the projects out there are good examples. We then got Lincoln on the Move. So those who had been waiting in line 10 to 15 years, we finally said, okay, we can start doing it. We've now expended all of that, and we're back at that cycle where all of our money has been expended and dedicated to other projects. So the only option that we have right now is to say no or take money from something else.
Other questions at this point? Yes, Councilwoman?
Director Elliott, thank you for being clear about how a yes here might mean trigger a no on the CIP that we've already made promises on that CIP. I am curious, though, in having an explanation of sort of the Lincoln on the Move. Like,
Yes.
we don't just create money.
Right.
you know, that's not possible. And so when we had Lincoln on the Move money and we were able to say yes to these kinds of situations, did you have a situation like this that you could say yes to?
We did. So we have a number of different projects. So with Lincoln on the Move, that's the sales tax investment that the voters approved for a 6-year period. We averaged right about $15 million a year, and 25% of those funds under the ordinance was allocated to growth. So those 25% of the funds, we were able to do a number of different growth projects. There are a number of different areas, and all of a sudden I'm blanking. We have one out on Southwest Folsom. We have 40th and Yankee Hill, and several others. I'm just all of a sudden blanking. So those are ones where we were, and we just basically, again, unfortunately, it's all about timing. And so there were a number of developers that had been in the queue essentially for years, and we just started to work through them. And a number of them until the funds ran out. And so that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, and I think it's important just to add to that answer that all those funds are basically allocated
Right.
for
They
worthy
are.
projects, and there was a process to get to that list of projects as well. We're effectively building another list of projects that could use more funding.
Yeah, I remember that, I mean, there was a large citizen group that was, committee that was formed, and so there was a lot of involvement, public involvement in how to allocate the Lincoln on the Move dollars and what projects they went to, and I thank you for that. So when up until this moment, and Mr. Houston talked about that the roundabout on 70th qualifies to receive impact fees. So it's an impact fee project. But
Correct.
when you don't have enough money to complete the project, is this a timing issue as well? I mean, if the developer were to say, I'd like to wait until money comes from somewhere?
So traditionally, for projects like this, we don't put in the annexation agreement or any development agreement that says we promise to pay you in years 6 or 7 when we don't have that known funding. On those that we knew it was Lincoln on the Move, we did work those into the agreements just so it was clear and it was allocated. But when we don't have those funds, we don't commit ourselves because we don't know what the funding is going to be like. We don't know what city council is going to be like. And so it's just not something that we have bound future elected officials to. And we just don't know where the funding is going to be that far out. And so we've not historically committed and agreed to say, yes, we agree in the next 6 years we'll try and find funding and we'll pay you in year 6 of the CIP. That's just not how we've traditionally done that.
I think our attorneys would probably have something to say about
I was trying not to overstep my bounds.
appropriating future dollars when we don't
Yes.
have a pot. for
Correct.
that. All right. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and let Director Carey speak. I think you wanted, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was more or less in a support role.
Okay.
Answer
Which
any
I
questions that
appreciate.
you might have.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and open it. Well, I'll start then with some questions. So let's talk about access both off of 70th and Yankee Hill. So my understanding from what Director Elliott stated was that there was not an envisioning going on of access off of 70th to begin with. So could you both describe to me, looks like from what we've seen thus far, right in, right out off of Yankee Hill. Could you address the access off of 70th and how that was made or how that was or was not envisioned? And then since we have Thomas here, could we also talk about the ideology of changing the access off of the east roundabout to facilitate access to this development as opposed to the Livingston development to the east?
Hey, and Thomas can probably provide a little bit. So my understanding when we were installing this, the Livingston property was willing to work with us,
Yep.
and that's how
Yep.
we had that. Right here, this would be Bridle Lane. In any of our plans, there wasn't a plan to extend it out here, but I will let Thomas go through the history and.
If I get this right.
Thomas, will you introduce yourself for the public?
I'm Thomas Schaefer, Assistant Director for Transportation for Lincoln Transportation and Utilities.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's been a while since I've been up here and saw all of you. So as I understand, because I couldn't see the picture up there, you're talking about, is it this with the orange arrow?
Yeah, that roundabout there.
And you say alter that so it points in there?
We see the access to the Livingston property. Is there a possibility of accessing the property to the west there alternatively, or?
I would think that you could design that to take a little bit of that out and redo it. I know there is a drainage, some drainage in both, actually in both areas. So at the time, this property seemed like it was ahead. This property was willing to work. This property wanted to make it work. And so I think the envisioned future of this was to bring it across and then cross it over there to minimize how much drainage structures, as we've all found out, how expensive they are.
Not that you would necessarily know this off the top of your head, but do you know, maybe you could find out if the city of Lincoln had approached the applicant that we have in front of us now in order to?
I'd have to do some research on
Okay.
what all happened back in that
Very good.
2015 timeframe.
Sure. And then could you address, Thomas, the ideology of Bridle and 70th and where Public Works was in terms of not necessarily having access there off of 70th?
Well, from an access management standpoint, to preserve the 70th Street corridor, you try to have as little access as possible.
Sure.
And but we know we do need access to help serve. With some of the challenges, as has been pointed out with the railroad to the north, there's a lot of connection that's lost there, and where this quarter-mile access point for Harvest Hills, you'd see it come in and serve a lot more of the property. Where it's kind of limited there, we don't think that's a necessary component to help serve the 70th Street traffic.
Okay.
On that.
Okay. And then since I have you both here as well, do you consider access to 70th Street necessary for what the applicant has proposed in terms of commercial and multifamily use? Would you approve what the applicant has suggested, has proposed now, without access at all to 70th Street? Would you support approval?
I think in the long term, yes. As we were pointing out earlier, the way that the access is currently designed off of Yankee Hill Road to the east to the Livingston property, ultimately that is a second access point in the longer term. Somewhat dependent on that property developing as well, of course, the way that it's been laid out.
Right.
But that would provide the second access point along with the current Yankee Hill Road access point to the current projects that's under consideration today. So yes, I think probably what we'd be, back up a second, the discussions over this length of time for this project have been focused on this access point being part of the consideration basically from the beginning. So we probably would have to have another conversation about maybe phasing the project to make it work best, but I think overall it could be approved without that access point.
But you would anticipate a phasing if 70th Street, if connection to 70th.
I think given the way
occur.
that larger developments that have happened in the past, we have talked about phasing it so that we waited until that second access point was available.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Other questions? Any staff that we have before us? It's sounding very quiet up here, so.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you all very much for coming up. Let's go ahead and see if there's any comment from the public before we bring our applicant back up. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on items 6B, 6C, 6D, or 6E? Anyone else from the public who would like to address items 6B, 6C, 6D, and 6E? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Houston.
Just 3 points I want to make. First of all, my comment about this would be an easy change, I'm only talking about amending the annexation agreement. I recognize those are hard choices to be made, but the annexation agreement that's in front of you, pursuant to the motion to amend, is easily adaptable to accommodate the concept of allowing the developer to have reimbursement for the delta as we measure it. The delta is important in my mind because the delta is being incurred by the developer because of the city's requirement that the roundabout be built. Our proposal for the turn lanes, we think, would have been adequate. We think it would have been better. We think it would have provided better access, but it was denied in a request for deviation through LTL because of failure to comply with some of the access management engineering requirements. So rather than fight that, we could have appealed that issue to the council, but we tried to work with the LTU and we came up with a roundabout design that was roughly equivalent in cost. It wasn't a huge differential. And we thought we could, make that accommodation and build the roundabout. But because of that decision, because the roundabout was going to be required, it required the extension of the box culvert that shouldn't have been the developer's cost. And that's the crux of the argument that we're making as it relates to the reimbursability of the box culvert. I guess the other thing I would say is I recognize I'm not asking the council to bind future councils on amending the CIP. If you look at the language that is found in section 2B, Roman numeral 6, as I recall, it indicates that if the impact fees are not sufficient for the reimbursement of the box culvert, that it's subject to the city council discretion on where those funds may come. Now, does that provide any guarantee to my client? No, it doesn't. I wish I had a funding source for you. I recognize the city doesn't have funding for that. But to be able to move forward with the annexation agreement, I'm satisfied with the language that we're going to ask the city in good faith to look for a funding source to reimburse the developer for the cost of the delta as it relates to the box culvert. And that's the request in front of you.
Very good. Any final questions for Mr. Houston or Mr. Marshall?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Brad?
I'll say one more thing here.
Sure.
I think there's probably some common ground here as far as the intersection improvements. Harvest Hills, as I stated earlier, is going to hit a point in which there will be signalization warranted. And I do believe that both sides believe that the roundabout is probably the solution to the matter. And so I think that's the approach that we've taken here, is the intersection's created already. We know where it's at. Access management says it's going to be at the quarter mile. So with the parameters that this site does provide, and ultimately, if the solution is going to be provided with a roundabout for Harvest Hills, once that starts building out and gets to full capacity, I do believe that it just comes down to the payment of that culvert. And I think that's the differentiator between the two sides is the culvert then necessary or not? And so we can engineer around it. We've proved that. We've come up with a solution with LTU that is a good solution with a roundabout. If this is like one of those projects, if you can think it and engineer it, and solve the problem, it just kind of comes down to dollars and cents. So if anything, any questions you have on that matter, I'm happy to answer them.
I forgot to address one thing, process. I recognize this is the end of the year. Recognize you only have, I think, one more meeting after, maybe two more meetings. I think we have flexibility on timing. I mean, if we can come to an agreement on the contents of an annexation agreement before your next meeting, that's fine. If we need to push it to January, I know we don't like things to linger on your agenda, but it's not imperative we get this resolved yet in 2023. If this pushes into 2024, we have some flexibility on timing. So I just want to share that with you on the process. It's not urgent. If we can get this resolved in the next month, I'll be pleased.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Houston.
Thank you for that.
Councilman, did you have a question for the applicant?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was lots of conversation about the delta, and I don't in my notes. I don't have a number down for that. Did you?
Yeah,
Did you share that with me again?
Yeah, the delta is $319,000. The cost of the box culvert for the roundabout is $865,000. The cost of the box culvert for turn lanes is $560,000. or $546,000. The difference between those two sums is the delta of 319.
That's what I really needed. I did write down 319. Thank you for sharing the other two numbers.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Houston or Mr. Marshall before we move on? Okay, very good. Thank you. Sony, let's move forward to 6F, G, and H.
Item 6F is annexation 22014, application of Southwest Folsom Development LLC to annex approximately 5.59 acres more or less in property legally described as a portion of lots 57 and 68 IT and portion of the adjacent South Folsom Street right-of-way located in the southwest 1/4 of section 10-9-6, Lincoln, Lancaster County, Nebraska, generally located at South Folsom Street and West Old Cheney Road, and the related change of zone 22037, application of Southwest Folsom Development LLC to change the zone from AG Agriculture District to R3 Residential District on the property generally located at South Folsom Street and West Old Cheney Road, and the related conditional zoning and annexation agreement between the city, Southwest Folsom Development LLC, White Holdings LLC, and 1640 LLC for the property generally located at the northeast corner of West Old Cheney Road and Southwest 12th Street.
Danae, welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Danae Kalkowski appearing today on behalf of Southwest Folsom Development LLC, 1128 Lincoln Mall, Suite 105. There we go, my map came up. Southwest Folsom is the owner of over 180 acres. We're located north of West Old Cheney Road, between South Folsom Street and Southwest 12th. You may be familiar with the already developing Southwest Village Heights development down here, and we had one of the roadway improvements that had a gap that got to use Lincoln on the Move funds to help finish up and build a roundabout and some actual urban roadway for that project. So we're here today to talk about kind of the next phase with the same developer. So we've got 180 acres. So we're here before you today with an annexation agreement to sort of master plan the area, along with the first phase of zoning and annexation. The annexation master plan's not only that 180 acres owned by the developer, but we also have about an almost 20 acre, 19 acre piece that was sold to Lincoln Public Schools for a future school there in the future. And then you might be familiar with, there was a parcel property these developers had sold to Lincoln Housing Authority. They've already come in with their own application to move forward with some multifamily development there. But we anticipate, this is a map showing kind of the prelim plat that did have final approval at Planning Commission. Anticipate largely single-family residential with some potential multifamily up to the northern end of the project. And we'll probably be addressing that more as we come forward with future phases and specific zoning for the later phases. The future land use map designates this area for future urban residential, and it's located in Tier 1 Priority A growth area, so it's appropriate for annexation. We have existing water distribution lines in South Folsom Street and Old Cheney, and the sewer. The sewer's been extended through the CIP. There's been a multiple years project to get the sewer extended out here to Southwest Lincoln. And this is one of the phases. It got the sewer line right here to Folsom Street, opening up the Foxtail Meadows project here. As part of this annexation, we will be taking an 18-inch sewer line across the property. So there's a little acreage here, but then ultimately it would be available to serve even a few additional acres to the west of Southwest 12th Street. So that will either be reimbursed or actually built, depending on the timing, by the city. So the funding for that sewer line's not an issue. Right, the main part of the annexation agreement, you're starting to get the theme tonight, is roads, 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 right, and intersection improvements. This is a unique site in that we've got like 3 minor arterials surrounding us, and we only have a half mile. We're dealing with Folsom Street over here on the east and Southwest 12th on the west, and then, Old Cheney Road down here on the south. So we're dealing with basically 5 access points for this 200 acres of development. We've worked with the city and with our adjacent neighbors to locate our access points so that they're compatible with both the Foxtail Meadows development to the east, Lincoln Housing Authority. This one actually ended up getting moved to the north from where it had been planned. Obviously, the Old Cheney Road one is been coordinated with the development to the south. So the annexation agreement provides for, all of these roads are already paved to rural standards, right? So we already have hard surface on the roads. So we're talking about turn lane intersection improvements as we develop and need the access. To the extent we're able to build these turn lane improvements to the final or future urban grade, and we're able to build them with the thick enough asphalt or concrete that they'll meet the permanent improvement, they would be eligible for impact fee reimbursement. But I didn't have this part of my presentation, but I'm going to make my plug too. Like Tom, the impact fees only go so far, right? And when we're dealing with residential land, they really don't go as far as they do when we're talking about commercial improvements. So the annexation agreement right now talks about the improvements that are needed at all 5 intersections, but we are really specifically addressing the 3 that we know the impact fees can fund on Folsom and on Old Cheney, which will allow us to open up the first phases of development for the property. The annexation agreement provides that we're going to address the access points for Southwest 12th in the future. There's kind of 2 things that we're hoping will happen before we get to those phases. Number 1, we'll have a better idea on how far our impact fees have gotten us on the other on the other intersection improvements. And we're hoping that the community's had another discussion about financing roadway improvements, and that there's a potential Lincoln on the Move Fund 2 that would help us go back and close the gap on some of these development projects. And I think what you're seeing now is, the first Lincoln on the Move allowed us to close a lot of those gaps that we had in annexation agreements that we'd been working on, as the city mentioned, for over 10 years. We got a lot of those gaps closed, but now we're already working on the next set of improvements. And we're not talking about areas way out on the edge. Tom's project's surrounded by the city already. This has the city to the south, the city to the east, and a very growing part of our community. So this need is building again, and we're starting to see as we work on these annexation agreements that we're having these gaps in being able to get our roadway improvements funded. We're usually in pretty good shape with getting sewer and water, able to phase those out and get them in the CIP, but the roads become a challenge for us. The change of zone request and the annexation request before you are just for a small 5-acre piece. That would be right kind of by our first intersection there. Again, anticipate annexing and zoning this in phases, developing it in phases, do the road improvements as we open up individual phases of the development. So you'll see us back here again, as you do on the project to the south, when we're ready to come in, with the next phase. I think at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but as I mentioned, the preliminary plat did receive final approval at Planning Commission, as did the annexation and zoning. I think we had 8-0 vote. We didn't have any neighbors come and speak in opposition. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very good. Any questions for Danae? I'll ask one here real quick, Danae. It looks like the same development team as Southwest
Yes,
Village.
same development team.
And that has been built out very, very quickly.
It has. It's obviously slowed down here a little bit. They've probably got 1 or 2 phases yet to go on the south side.
And then they're done?
And probably finish that before they move up to the north.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that reference
We're just
point.
trying to kind of get it master plan so that they're ready to go.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I did.
Councilwoman, yes, please.
Thank you for mentioning the other developments around in this area, because I know we have something coming up that's very near next on the agenda, and I'm trying to figure, what kind of intersection are you looking at for that access point that's highlighted in yellow?
That, I think it's just, this is the preliminary plat, so it shows roundabouts, because as part of the preliminary plat, we will, when we final plat, we'll dedicate right-of-way for roundabouts.
Okay.
But the annexation agreement only requires us to construct turn lanes, right? And this is residential, so we're not talking about needing signalization. It's just being able to get the traffic to move in and out. So right and left turn lanes at each of the intersections.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Danae? Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on items 6F, 6G, or 6H? Anyone else here to speak on items 6F, 6G, or 6H? All right, see none. Let's go ahead and move on to 6I and 6J and 6K.
I'll be calling item 6I, annexation 23009, application of Star City Optimist Youth Foundation to annex approximately 33.9 acres more or less and adjacent South Folsom Street, right of way on property generally located at 5300 South Folsom Street. And the related change of zone 23067, application of Star City Optimist Youth Foundation to change the zone from AG Agricultural District to R4 Residential District on property generally located at 5300 South Folsom Street, and the related conditional zoning and annexation agreement for the Optimist Youth Sports Complex between the city and Star City Optimist Youth Foundation for the property generally located at 5300 South Folsom Street.
Welcome. Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Leroy Sievers, 716 Driftwood Drive, Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm the president of the Star City Optimist Youth Foundation, one of those positions that you get to do from time to time. We're here on this because we're in the process of completing in excess of $2 million improvement to the facility. Two of the fields are being turned into 4 all-weather fields. And as a part of that process, we're also improving the concession stand and the restroom facilities. As a part of that, and as a part of the condition of the grant that helps fund some of this work, we need to be annexed into the city so we can connect to the city water. The water would simply be used for, as I said, the concession stand and the restrooms, not for the fields or anything else. But that's why we're here, and that's the gist of what we're trying to get accomplished here. If I can answer any question, I'd be happy to try to do so.
Very good. Well, it seems pretty straightforward, so thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. Councilors, any questions for our applicant here today? Yes, Councilwoman.
I read on item K, your conditional zoning and annexation agreement, that it also includes your agreement to move your driveway to a roundabout.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. Like, what's the
That was a
what's the
condition that
timing?
was, the city said we had to agree to in order to be annexed.
Okay.
So if we want to get annexed, we have to make that agreement. And in order to comply with the condition of the grant, we have to get annexed. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. We'd prefer to leave our access where it was, but this is what we're faced with.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And thank you for your plans for improving your sports fields.
Well, this is phase 1. So hang on for phase 2.
Any other questions for our applicant? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on items 6I, 6J, or 6K? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on, Madam Clerk.
Item 6L, Street and Alley Vacation 23008, requested the City of Lincoln to vacate the east-west alley generally located between North 47th Street and North 48th Street, south of Madison Avenue and north of St. Paul Avenue, located in Lincoln, Lancaster County, Nebraska.
Mr. Seacrest, welcome.
Good day. My name's Kent Seacrest. I'm today representing New Generation Properties, LLC, which is a related entity to Speedway Properties. And we're here to talk about an alley vacation, a very important alley vacation to the redevelopment of this block. In particular, if it's showing up, this is an east-west alley, and it doesn't even go through. It's an alley today, but it does not go through at North 48th Street. So it's mostly 4/5 of an alley that's used for public. Who owns the north abutting piece is you, the city of Lincoln. And you got to acquire that property as part of what I call, some of you might remember 20 years ago, Green's Plumbing burned down. And so as part of that effort, the city acquired the whole north half of that block. And it's become a redevelopment site, and my client has been selected to be the redeveloper of record. And we will shortly be talking to you about the redevelopment agreement. It's been a redevelopment plan that you've all approved. We've had 2 or 3 neighborhood meetings, very excited, very supportive. Westland's very excited, very supportive. And so we will be turning this into about 57 affordable and workforce type housing, which is needed in the area. And so to make this vacation go through, what we're talking about is turning the alley into, it still won't go through, but it allows turning movements. And instead of the alley being one way, we're going to pave it, and it'll be 2-way, and it'll serve not only our north development, but St. 48th LLC has been fully cooperative, and we follow the good neighbor policy here, and so everybody's agreeing to do this. And as part of your vacation ordinance, it says that St. Paul, or St. 48th, will get a foot of the alley along here. This old building is in your alley by 1 foot. And to follow the good neighbor policy, I think the city and us both agreed we don't want that property to be non-conforming. So a foot upon vacation will go to them to remedy that situation. And this was one where it was on consent at Planning Commission, and it stayed there, and so nobody has been expressed any opposition to date. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Seacrest? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 6L? Anyone else here for item 6L? Seeing none, let's move on to 6M.
Item
6N.
Item 6M is change of zone 23065, application of Shunkwiller Real Estate LLC to change the zone from R2 Residential District to R5 Residential District on property generally located at 4734 and 4744 Gladstone Street, and the related conditional zoning agreement between the city and Shunkwiller Real Estate LLC and Cactus Blossom LLC, and the property generally located at 4744 Gladstone Street.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, Ben Swanson. I'm with Rembolt Ludke, 1128 Lincoln Mall, Suite 300. We represent the applicant in this change of zone for 4734 and 4744 Gladstone Street from R2 residential to R5 residential, subject to a zoning agreement. The purpose of this change of zone is so that the existing and historical uses on these properties can continue to maintain the existing diverse housing in the neighborhood. A little bit of history. 4734 Gladstone, which is the one in from 48th Street, was used as a triplex for many, many years under an apartment license from the city of Lincoln. The previous owner lost the legal right to the third unit due to disuse. The current owner purchased the property a little over a year ago under the impression it was legally a triplex. Went to pull a building permit and found out, no, it was no longer legally a triplex. So we just want to clean up that zoning so that it can go back to its historical use. 4744 Gladstone is currently used as a duplex, as a non-conforming use under a building permit that was issued in 1953. The planning staff asked that we include that property in this as well, so we can clean up that zoning and also avoid any issues of spot zoning, so that entire corner of the lot will now be R5. So this change of zone is subject to a zoning agreement. That agreement will restrict 4734 to its 3 units and 4744 to its 2 units. Those restrictions will run with the land, so this isn't a case where someone could buy the property years later and put up giant apartment buildings. The agreement will restrict it to the current or just a few years ago uses. The planning staff did recommend approval as consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's in the future urban residential area. It avoids spot zoning due to both properties being included and the R5 right across the street. It fits within the character of the neighborhood and allows it to have a diversity of dwellings. There was a possible issue with it is within 300 feet of a industrial zone, but the planning staff agreed that because we are not expanding the use of the residential, that the comprehensive plan does not have an issue as long as you're not expanding it within that 300-foot mark. So we brought it to Planning Commission. They recommended approval 8-0. In sum, we are just trying to take these historical uses and current uses, bring them in line so that there's no issues in the future with the zoning, and we can keep the housing that's already there in that neighborhood. And we would ask that you approve this change of zone, and I can take any questions.
Any questions for Ben?
Is that an alley that's just to the north, or is that a street?
That's an alley. So the you can kind of see here, it's kind of a grainy photo, but yeah, there's an alley here between the property just to the north, and that gives access to, there's some off-street parking that I believe serves at least 4734, a little lot back there.
Any other questions?
I want to know.
Okay. Any other questions at all? All right, sounds good. I appreciate you working with planning to find a solution here. I know this owner has been working for a while to try to find a solution here, and I think that this makes a lot of sense and preserves additional housing units over the course of time. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
All right, that ends our public hearing items. Madam Clerk, do you want to take us through Section 7?
Is there anyone else here to testify on those 2 items?
There, good question, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on 6M and 6N? We are running low on people today, so I think we might be pretty close to done. Anyone else here for 6M or 6N? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, please.
All right, Section 7 is resolutions. First readings are items 7A through 7J. Section 8 is ordinances, first reading and related resolutions, items 8A through 8L. Section 9 is pending list date certain, item 9A. And Section 10 is pending list, item 10A.
All right, very good. Public comments not during this time, not during this session today. However, public comment sessions will be held on December 11th and December 12th of this month, or excuse me, 11th and December 18th of this month. I apologize. Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate it. And with that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move adjournment.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
We are adjourned.
We are.